Good morning and welcome to Parent Power Hour. My name is Kristen and here you are. It is Thursday here in Dallas at 10 a.m. and we are here on Parent Power Hour episode 24? 24. Oh my goodness, you guys. Wow. We're almost hitting that 25 mark. Our first quarter, right? We can count it as that. I'm Kristen and you're in the right place. And here we are together. We come to Parent Power Hour. Good morning, Shay, to better ourselves so that we can better serve those around us that we love. And if you're a parent, I hope that you are tuning in either live here in person or at a time when you can really dial in and be able to give yourself the time to reflect, to consider, to take in a lot of the concepts that we cover here in Parent Power Hour. And if you're not a parent, do the same thing, because maybe you're doing this with this in your ear while you're also putting out your lesson plans for next week. But in any case, you're tuned in, and the hope here is that you can find some tips and tools and strategies to power you up so that you are able to become a more full and better version of yourself so that you can serve those that you love. I had so many technology problems yesterday, you guys. I'm still like spinning. I have a little PTSD now about it. I know that's dramatic. But we survived together, and thank you so much to those of you who did chime in on the comments and let me know that things weren't going the way that we thought they were. We weren't able to hear each other. So I'm actually going to be picking up on some of the places where we left off yesterday on our topic there, and then of course adding in onto some new tips and some new things to consider. Before we do that, just checking in, how is the hashtag next 90 challenge going for you? We are also, I have invited the community to join me in participating in the next 90 days challenge. And yeah, I can tell, like, what is this, week 3 of the next 90-day challenge? Week 2, week 3, week 2. It's week 3. I can tell, that it's been about 21 days of the challenge, and I don't know about you all, but whenever I'm intentional about practicing something, I can start to feel the other things around me that are not intentional anymore. I don't know if that makes sense, but I have more notice and more attention, not necessarily is given to them, but I have more notice to those things that aren't in line with the things that I am keeping on the forefront of my thoughts. So good morning, Janet. Welcome in. There's that fancy dress again. I love that display picture. It just makes me smile. So just doing a quick check-in on our gratitude practice, moving our bodies at least 30 minutes every day, getting in water, half of your body weight in ounces in water. If you weigh 100 pounds, 50 ounces of water, okay? Just said that's, yeah. Waking up an hour earlier so that you can have time to yourself. And if it's not actually waking up, then it's setting that time out to yourself. I'm just trying to get situated here. All the technology, it's going to go great today. I have putting out all of the positive vibes in the technology world. We're gonna be great today. And those 5 to thrive that I just rattled off, the water, and removing one category of food from your diet that isn't good for you, that isn't serving you and helping you. And I was just kind of sharing with you my perspective that when I'm focused on those 5 things, and as a part of the next 90 days challenge here, that I've invited you to join me in. When I'm focused on those kinds of things, I don't know about you all, but I start to see all the other things that are not those things. I'm a lot more aware of, like, every piece of chocolate that I eat. My category of food giving up is not chocolate, but I just become a lot more aware, and then also I'm a lot more thirsty. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I didn't know that I was that thirsty all the time. And I don't mean like slang thirsty, okay? Just focus, bring it back in. And I'm also noticing, like, my skin, like, starts to, on the days when I do really get all of the water in, my skin feels so much better. And back in January, it wasn't actually part of the 90-day challenge, because that was actually the end of it. Let me collect my thoughts about what I'm sharing with you all. So the last 90 days challenge was the last 90 days of 2019, those last 3 months. And then, we were more poised to be our full selves and to, we had been practicing this 5 to Thrive for 90 days, and then 2020, is there. And so it puts you in a better position to be, instead of trying to catch up and, reeling, crashing down into the end of the year, you're already all powered up and you're ready to go. And so in January, I was feeling, the positivity and the accomplishment, because a lot of the 90-day challenge is to prove to yourself that you can do these things, to prove to yourself that you can see growth in the areas that you would like to keep growing in. Good morning, Mom. Mom's here. And so in January wasn't part of the 90-day challenge, but I was like, you know what? I've been going good with this. Let's do another challenge. And another community group I'm a part of, virtual, did a sugar-free challenge. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, and I invited my mom and my sister to join in with me, because I was like, sugar-free I'm not a big, like, sugary, I don't like candy and stuff, but I love my dark chocolate, and my 2 pumps of vanilla in my lattes, and having that awareness around, like, even just removing basic sugar. I wasn't going as far as removing something like a pasta that would be converted to sugar, but I just noticed, like, it's whenever you're in this awareness, right, of looking for ways to better yourself, you end up noticing a lot of other things. And so in Sugar-Free January, I was noticing, wow, this has sugar in it, and I didn't even think about my coffee, like 2 pumps of vanilla. I didn't think that was really that much, but there's that. And then probably about 2 or 3 weeks into Sugar-Free January, I noticed, like, my skin was less blotchy, and I was still doing the water ounces from the previous 90-day challenge. And so I was like, oh, my skin just feels better. And right now I'm starting to notice the effects of the water coming back in, but I haven't eliminated sugar, so I still feel this, like, blotchiness. And you don't see it. Don't worry, you guys, you don't see it. Makeup. But for me, my physical body. So I went on that big giant tangent for 2 reasons. Reason 1, I encourage you, I would hope that you would join in on this. It's not too late. You just turn in your email, thehollisco.com/90days. And it's really just to feel that we are on this journey together. For me, I don't really do things alone. Like, I'm a very social person. So if you guys haven't picked that up, I have no problem talking to you, and you're not even here. So just imagine if you actually were here. There are some people that are here live, but so that's the first reason. And then the second reason also is to see this as an opportunity to also compare not only physically what we're putting into our bodies and eliminating from what we're allowing in, the bad foods, but also to have that as a parallel for how we're taking care of ourselves, emotionally, mentally, with the way that we are managing and the way that we are allowing stress to be put into us, and how we are letting go of stress. So I find that it has 2 purposes, right? That physical benefit, and of course, our bodies are vessels. Our bodies are always going to reflect the good or not so good things that we're putting into them. And so, just like the blotches, when I have the sugar, the red blotches, like, show up. I get it a lot of places, like up here, and you can see I am a little bit red and blotchy. It's because I had 3 dark chocolate Trader Joe's almond buttercups last night. And I haven't had enough water yet to flush that sugar out of my body. But just like the physical things show up, so do the emotional things. And we're going to talk about that today a little bit. Yesterday we got cut off at the end, and that was right about when I was sharing with you a quote or a thought. I was struggling with, do I call it a quote? Do I call it a thought? Like, what do I that I actually have on my mirror. Are you guys like this too? do you keep like post-it notes or sayings and things like that around the house? Um, Maybe I couldn't do this in where I used to live before because my bathroom mirror was inside the bathroom where the shower was, and so the heat would cause the steam, would cause the all my notes to fall off. But right outside of my bathroom was like my closet door, and so I was able to open my closet door and get on that. So put all my thoughts and stuff on there. But now my bathroom vanity mirror is outside of the shower, so now I mean I'll send you guys a picture someday, like it's or post it up here or put it up on a conversation. Have like probably 4 rows of regular post-it note sizes, and then another day I got a vis-a-vis, and I was because you're there every day, right? You literally you physically must go to the bathroom every day. If you don't, consult your physician. That this is not the show for you. To find that issues, find some solutions to that kind of problem. We've got other problems we're trying to solve. And so this is actually a quote that I have up and on my mirror that somebody gave me. So a place where I used to work, we had a lot of customers in and out, and randomly this customer came through and was like, would you like a bookmark? And had like a whole stack of bookmarks, and was like, I don't, okay, sure, are you trying to sell me something, and like me or 2 or 3 of the other people that were there, they're all, very hesitant about this customer trying to give us something because it's like a retail sort of exchange scenario. It was a pie shop. Why am I acting like it's a big deal? I worked at a pie shop for an interim while I was recentering and getting ready for you all. Now I know. I was following one of my passions, which still is baking and food, and then serving people, of course. And so this guy came through and he was there to buy some pie, and he also had bookmarks. And I was like, God, and he had them like fanned out. They were laminated, and he was like, pick one. And so apparently in the area where the pie shop is, there's lots of like pedestrian traffic and lots of tourists, and people came through all the time for different reasons, from different countries, from different places. And so I was like, okay, you're in the practice of generosity. And of course, also when you're working somewhere like that, you have a little bit of a different position. Instead of like setting a boundary and saying no, you get the concept. So I took one. I just took a random one, and the other people that were there working with me, we all took one. Okay, great, have a great day or whatever. And then on the other side of it, on one of the sides had a very spiritual, religious connotation. I was like, oh, okay, that's what this was about. You're proselytizing. I get it now. Oh, okay. The other side is the one that I have facing me on my bathroom mirror. Since, yes, haha, very funny, we do all go to the bathroom every day. That's a comment that just popped up. And I shared it at the end of yesterday when we started to get cut off, because it fits exactly with what we're talking about this week. We're talking about change. We're talking about how to influence change. And part of the reason why we're talking about that, don't worry, I won't get lost. I'll come back to the quote. But I want to be sure that if you weren't here with us yesterday or the past few days, that you kind of have the journey of where we are today. And we're talking about change for the sake of being prepared for the lift. I have hopefully given you the opportunity to reflect on the last 4 weeks here in Dallas. We've been in, quarantine and social distancing and all that for 4 weeks. And I want you to just play with me for a minute and imagine that 4 weeks from now. Imagine this is the halfway point, and 4 weeks from now, the lift happens. Don't go anywhere politically. Just stay with me. I'm just saying, imagine for our purposes here in this conversation. And change has already happened. Even up at this point, we've reacted to the change the first 4 weeks because the changes slapped us in the face, and we had to change all of our lives, and we had to respond to it. We had to react and respond. And so what I'm hoping that we can do is start to affect change and to influence change for the next 4 weeks, so that when the lift, in my pretend world, in our pretend world, when the lift happens in 4 weeks, we're not shocked by it. We're not shocked by all of the change that has happened, that is happening, that happens 4 weeks from now. When we get there on a Friday and we're like, we can go to Target and we can get in the car and we can go to a birthday party and we can go, it's going to look different, but we won't be shocked by it, right? We won't be shocked by the fact that there are things that are different. I'm not saying be careful. I'm not saying we won't be shocked by the fact that we're out again, because we will. That's going to be part of another level of our struggle. But what we won't be shocked by is the struggle, because we're powering up. Because for us, in parent power or in individual power, that means that we have the ability, we've chosen that as our definition, that we have the ability to affect change. And so the last 4 weeks, we've been responding to changes. For the next 4 weeks, we're going to affect change. We're going to put things into motion and work with our realm of influence in our families, in our teams that we're working with virtually, in our communities, if it's in our house. And so that starts with your motivation and your ability. That's what we talked about on episodes 21 and 22. Do you want to? And can you? Those are the two big questions. And then episode 23, which was yesterday, is okay, we've dug in, we figured out we do want to, and we on those areas, and we don't want to in those areas. Okay. So we figured, we sat with that. I'm not going to rehash everything there. And so yesterday we're talking about getting into the a little bit more of a deeper understanding of what is the next right thing. What is that for us? And so when we're creating change, what we're doing is to bring it back to the quote that someone, you decide, universe, God, Oprah, Buddha, whoever, you decide. I mean, I personally do believe that things happen for a reason, and that I was probably pulled that one bookmark out so I could share it with you. And the quote is, your whole life comes alive when you have the courage. We've talked about courage on here. We've talked about courage and vulnerability on here. Your whole life comes alive when you have the courage to follow your dream. We've talked about our dreams on here. Your whole life comes alive when you have the courage to follow your dream, to create change. Create change. Affect change. Not respond to change. Not react to change. Your whole life comes alive when you have the courage to follow your dream, to create change, and to do what is right over what is easy. Whoop, this way. There it is. And that's what that bookmark said. And that's the bookmark I have on my bathroom mirror, because it reminds me, and I hope it reminds you as well today, that of all of the work that we have done here on Parent Power Hour, that we've worked on that courage. We've worked on what are our dreams, and identifying our why, and staying centered on our purpose. And we're working on right now, learning ways that we can create change, that we can have influence in our families, and doing what is right over what is easy. You say that to your kids all the time. I know you do. You're good parents. You are whatever is right for your family, whatever you've decided, whatever you guys, whatever you all have decided is right for you and your family. You're pouring into your kids every day, whether it's intentional or responsive, reactive. But we all know that as adults, that doing what is right over what's easy. What's right for me may not be right for you. What's easy for you may not be easy for me. It's super easy for some of you, for my dad to get up at 5 a.m. It's super easy for him to do that. He could probably get up at 4 a.m. if he wanted to. That's habit, right? That's life circumstances as a young boy, and then set forward on his life. At the same time, that gives him that hour, probably a few more hours, to have his alone time, to have his devotion, meditation, reflection, all of that practice. It's right for me to also have devotion, meditation, reflection, all of that gratitude practice. but it is not easy for me to get up early. You guys, I think I say this like every time. So what I have to do is I have to start to retrain my body to do that. On the last 90-day challenge of the year, I was like, boom, bada bing, bada boom. I'm getting up at 6. No problem, no problem, no problem. I've got my hour to myself. I'm doing my gratitude. But this time around, I think because I'm out of the routine of going into work, right? It's been a lot more of a growing process. And one strategy for that, if any of you are out there like me, one strategy for that is that I just remembered this morning, and it worked a lot better, or I remembered it last night, obviously, has to do exactly with what we're talking about, which is instead of taking on getting up that whole hour early and just scratching your whole routine. I was getting up at 8. Now I have to get up at 7. Now taking it 15-minute chunks, taking it that 1%, taking it that one next right step. That one next right step. You are way more likely to be consistent with that change instead of the bigger change, right? In overall change. Because if I can wake up at 7:45 instead of 8 today, and then tomorrow I'll probably still wake up at 7:45 instead of 8, and these are made up times. This is not real. If I woke up at 8, I wouldn't be ready for you guys. But if I wake up at 7:30 for 2 more days instead of 8, okay, well now I'm half an hour early. And then now we're 4 days in, and then maybe 6 days in, I'm waking up at 7:15 instead of 8. I'm taking it 1% at a time, and that's exactly what we can do when we're trying to zero in on what is the right thing, because you decide what's the right thing for you. And doing what is right could mean some big, huge thing in your life. And if you take on that big, huge thing, you're going to slip into that overwhelm a lot more quickly. You're going to slip into the fear of failure, the fear of, well, what will other people think? But if you break it down, and Ben Cook, co-founder, CEO of New Minds, has a great webinar, 1-hour workshop exactly highlighting this concept of the 1% rule, and he also did an episode on Finish the Day. So if you go to newminds.tv, scroll down to Finish the Day, and you'll see his whole series there, and he does have, there's a title under there that's all about the 1% rule. And his webinar, if you go to newmindsenrichment.com/imperfection, we are giving that webinar away for free, and it includes it's a 1-hour workshop, and it includes the workbook that goes with it to help to unpack some of these things. Go there, sign up, you'll have everything for free. But I just said that to say that in and of itself, the concept of the 1% rule, first of all, it's not mine. But second of all, it's something that can go a lot further and a lot deeper, and I encourage you to go down that road. So when we're affecting change and we're talking about what is the next right step, what is the one next thing, think about also as a parent, or if you're a teacher working with kids, how powerful this will be as well. Knowing that you have this whole big giant worksheet to do is a little bit frustrating or a little bit overwhelming. Or if you have this whole paper to do, if you're a high schooler, if you have this big project, break it down. What is the next right step? Yes, writing the paper itself is very daunting. What's your paper on? It's on markers. Okay, so what's the next thing? What do we know about markers? That's the next thing. Let's go find out what we know about markers. This is a terrible topic. If your child writes a paper on markers, please send it to me, because that would be really entertaining. I think it would probably be really entertaining to read the history of markers. Breaking those things down into small increments, and that goes for actual productivity, which is like a huge passion of mine. Like, let's not waste time. Let's just get to it. Let's talk about what are the actual action steps that we can take to get closer to our goal. And I'm the same way when it comes to taking care of ourselves and being the best version of ourselves possible. Let's not waste time. Like, let's get to it. What's the core of our being and who we are? And what's the next right step that we can do to get there? Because that's what's going to really see us through any life challenge, and also the upcoming lift that will happen. I have a comment here. In my work with families, I'm seeing some great parts of quarantine that I will encourage families with young children to maintain after the lift, being more present and having this new level of attachment with their children, focus on family, staying home more, being healthier, on and on and on. And I love that. I love that concept of, there are so many positive things. Thank you for sharing that. There are so many positive things that are coming out of our being stuck at home. It's our natural it's human nature to see the problems, to see the negative stuff, to see the frustrations, the meltdowns, the attitude swings with the, adolescence, the disagreements in relationship and parenting, that could happen, because human nature is to like blow those things up so that we can eliminate them and fix them and take care of them, right? And at the same time, the other human nature part that we have is that there are beautiful things happening. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about our ability as humans to conceptualize this. I don't know of any other species, and I'm not a scientist, so I wouldn't know anyways, but but there are no other species that can hold two opposing truths at the same time. I know there's a fancy word for that. If Ben's still watching, I bet he can pipe in, and I bet there's a whole thing. I've heard it before. It's just back here somewhere. So why not? Like, why not use? And I actually heard this on a talk this morning that I was listening to. We can technically use this crisis. We can kind of use it as an excuse. We can, in a good way. Like, let's not talk about all the negative things, the PJs and the Netflix and the cookies, and no. Let's talk about the good excuses. You know what, guys? We're here together for the next 4 weeks in our pretend world, remember? In our pretend world, we know that we can clock out and the lift will happen in 4 weeks in our pretend world. So, guys, we're here for the next 4 weeks. Yelling at each other isn't working. Because we're here in this crisis, we're stuck in this house together, we got to figure out something else that's going to work. So, what are the problems right now? Here are the problems. We've got, homework frustrations. We've got who's cleaning up after dinner frustrations. We've got, I can't talk to everybody's personal stuff about how I can't talk to my friends. I can't go over to my friends' houses, and not to mention the little bitty ones who can't even verbalize any of that. So use that, because a lot of what the problems that are highlighted right now in all of our situations, whether it's in our business, in our families, or in our personal selves, within ourselves, those are problems that were there before. They were there before. The spotlight's been put on them now, because now you're locked in one house together as a family. The spotlight's been put on them now because you're chilling at home because you don't have a family and you're spending a lot more time with yourself. The work issues were always there. It's just that when you're virtually meeting with each other, they come out a lot more pronounced. And so what we can do is, those of us who are self-aware and are aware of the effectiveness of our communication and the place that we want to go in our families, we can kind of use this crisis as our excuse to work on things, to get things in the place where we know we want them to be. And if you think about it, this is what brings us to our title question today, which is, what is the problem here? What are the problems? They've always been the problems that you've always been having and experiencing in your relationships or in your communication or with your children or at work. Those have always been the same problems. They're here now, and they feel a lot more intense, don't they? They feel a lot more urgent. And a lot of times, if you think about it, it comes down to, or not if you think about it, it's 100% research based. Those problems continue because we are not willing to have the courage to have the conversations and do what's right. It's a lot easier to keep sweeping those problems under the carpet than it is to face them. And if you think about it, like usually when there's some sort of tough conversation, we have, if you think about like someone who's testing you. So the example I heard in the talk this morning was, let's say it's post-COVID and your mother-in-law comes to you, guys are all having dinner together, and your mother-in-law comes to you and says, oh, well, do you think your husband likes your cooking better or my cooking better? And for a lot of you, I bet that just sent you like with whatever mother-in-law issues you have. I'm not married, so I don't have them. So that's why I was like, I'm going to use this. This is the perfect example. I'm not alienating anybody by using this example in my life. Translate the example if you would like to in your own context. But that's poking, that's testing. And instead of focusing on her asking that question, focus on your response to that. What would your normal response be if she comes up to you and says, so what do you think? Like, do you think your husband likes your cooking better or my cooking better? I mean, some of you, I bet you'd want to just be like, punch, just physical, like, that's it. A lot of us would be like, oh, how could he ever decide? That's impossible. He loves both of us so much. Right? Some of us might be like, well, it just depends on what we're cooking. I know he really loves your thing and he really loves my other thing. And any of our responses typically have to do with humor, which of course it's either humor or deflecting. And humor is also a form of deflecting, is dodging, answering that question. And we get caught up in that because it's easier to avoid it than to face it. And I'm not saying you got to have a whole come to Jesus with your mother-in-law once lift has happened. So just hang tight with me here. What I am saying is that we get caught up in the moment, and that's part of what I heard this morning that I felt was really important to pass on to you all today, is that we aren't able to see what the conversation is about because there's something hidden going on. And it may not even be that hidden. Maybe you and your mother-in-law have talked about this a lot. But most of us get caught up in this situation if you're thinking about your teen, or if you're thinking about you and your adult child, or your teenage or middle school age child, or you and your spouse, whatever the combination of the relationship is. Most of us get caught up in that because we aren't able to see what the hidden motive is. And so we have to consider, let's see if I can switch my screen today with success. Yes, I think I can. I think I see the mic is on. So what we are considering, and this is pulled from the webinar I was a part of, or I was watching, is this big idea. Before we even respond to mother-in-law or anybody else, before we even go there, we have to consider this concept up here. My eyes are just like not working today. You have to decide what is the real issue. It's another way of saying what I just said to you about there's something hidden going on. You have to decide that what is the real issue that stands between you and your progress. And that's going to mean progress in your relationship in this instance. That's going to be what's the real issue between, and it could even mean the real issue between you and your progress in your productivity if you're talking about your team. And I love this concept of breaking down what could be potentially hidden. This comes from Vital Smarts, which is what we started with. I pulled some things from that as well on episode 21. And what is hidden is one of three things. CPR. Either the content, there's some other immediate pain or problem that's going on in that conversation, that's being the content of that conversation is a trigger for you. Or P, it's probably a pattern or part of the process, that it's a series of concerns with this same person that you're discussing the thing with, it's a series of concerns with how we're discussing it as well. It could be that the way that that question is asked to you triggers memories from others or other negative conversations you've already had with this particular person. So it could be the content, it could be the pattern, or it could be the relationship. That there is a deeper concern with the trust and in that relationship, and that there's some you're questioning their competency. That kind of comes back to the ability and the skill that we were talking about this earlier this week. Excuse me. And so a lot of times when we're trying to figure out what our response can be when someone asks that question that triggers us and that is seemingly combative, or that feels like you don't get to ask me that. That's not right. It usually has to do with one of those three things. It's either the content, what's hidden in that conversation is something about the content. It's probably a pattern or process, and it has something to do with the relationship. It could be it could be all of those things, right, guys? So what another option is, let me just switch screens again, is that when you're starting to have this conversation, you're probably going to be experiencing some other frustrations, right? And if during the conversation you're responding and you're having an immediate reaction that is, whoa, I'm just so frustrated and we're not getting to the bottom of solving this issue, and she keeps asking me, well, does he like spaghetti? Well, does he like your meatloaf? Well, does he like your whatever banana bread? Does he like your lasagna? And she's just fueling the fire, and you're getting increasingly more frustrated. The first problem that could be happening there is that you might be just simply having the wrong conversation, because you're not talking about something that's an immediate pain or problem. You're not addressing with courage some sort of series of issues of concerns with this particular person. Or you're not addressing that deeper concern with trust or competence and respect. Another reason why you might be getting frustrated during the conversation is, or if you're having this conversation, it seems like you're having it over and over, is a similar concept. You're simply having the wrong conversation. You shouldn't be talking about the meatloaf. You should be talking about something that has adjusted the level of competency, of respect, of that relationship, addressing that pattern, addressing that content that is there for that immediate response that you're experiencing when someone asks you that. So when you're able to work through those things, and we can talk more about, I'm going to go back to that first slide, which is deciding what is the real issue that stands between you and your progress. And I'm going to leave that as the big question with you today, because when you and I'm not giving you strategies here on purpose to unpack that conversation. First of all, come back tomorrow and I'll give you some actual steps on how to speak out loud what your response can be. But also, I wanted to be able to give you some time to sit with this big idea here. You can see it's number 2. I grabbed it from the webinar I was watching. But ultimately, I want to leave you with this because I'd like for you to consider, what's the cost of not getting to the problem? What's the cost of not getting that problem out on the table? Because you're paying for something. There's some exchange, there's some economy exchange, right? We talked about that a few episodes ago about how your ability and to influence change can have to do with the exchange of economy. And what you've just done is, by not saying anything, by keeping your mouth shut, this was the quote I used on that day. I knew it would come back. Our lives begin to end the day that we become silent. Can't find it. There it is. About the things that matter. If you're constantly silent about those things, and you're letting that emotional negativity, saying lots of words that we've talked about a lot about here on Parent Power Hour, is that you're choosing that that's not worth the cost of getting that problem out on the table. You're choosing that problem is more precious and more worth protecting than your relationship with that person. That problem is has more weight and more influence in your life than getting to a place where you can identify more quickly what pain or process of or patterns, is starting to emerge because of not addressing it. And we all know what happens there. Emotional safety, psychological safety, out the window, out the door. Because when you don't talk about it, when you don't talk it out, you act it out. Way back we talked about how to name it to tame it, because that helps you to talk it out. And so what's happening here is this, in this part of our conversation I'm wrapping up with today, is that, if you're not talking about these things, if you are choosing silence over vulnerability and courage, then you're going to act it out. It's going to come back, and you're going to, next time the mother-in-law asks, snap, it's going to come back, right? Okay. I think I'm going to end with that today. It's more of a consideration. Let this linger around in your thoughts. And over the next few days, over the next 24 hours, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere. I'd like for you to let this ruminate a little bit and see when the challenges and conversations, in whether it's with your family or on your teams, consider, what's the real thing that's at stake here, and what's actually the real issue. Is it an immediate pain or problem? Is it a pattern of things, or is it a relationship? And then tomorrow we'll tackle on how we can respond to those and get to some practical tips and tools on getting there. Another thing that they said in this webinar, and this is the last thing I promise, another thing that they said in this webinar was that, and I'm going to get it wrong, but something to the effect of, when Einstein was asked, how do you solve a problem? What do you spend your time on first? Einstein responded with, well, if I have 1 hour, I spend 55 minutes defining the problem. Then I spend 5 minutes solving it. So I hope that's kind of brings, and I think it's valuable to bring that in here today, because we spent a lot of time defining the problem, and then you have more clarity on it, right? I think it speaks for itself. I hope you found something helpful today. I think I'll just leave this up for the end. No, I'll do my ending thing too. Okay. I'm getting excited because my technology is working. But I'm going to close it up for you all today. Tomorrow is coming. Today is here. What are you going to do with all of the beautiful things that are happening around you? I'm going to go drink a bunch of water right now because I am so thirsty. And then I'm going to go in the bathroom and look at all my Post-it notes, because that's going to happen a million times. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in to Parent Power Hour. Hope you found something real and that you were inspired with some new learning that happened with you today. And here on NewMinds.tv, it's so important for us to know that we are doing things that can help you to cultivate your passions, because when we pursue our passions, they can become our talents. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow.